If you want to automate some of your lawn and landscape sales process, watch this video. If you don't, you could be working 70, 80, 90, 100 hours a week with everything revolving around you, which will not only burn you out, it could cost you key relationships. And in this interview, unfortunately, my guest says that lack of work-life balance contributed to a divorce. But the good news is he walked away from that experience inspired to learn how to control his business, how to use technology to automate. And he now runs Simple Growth Solutions, a company that helps lawn and landscape companies automate their sales and customer service. And in today's interview, we go into great detail on easy ways that you can get started with automation. My name is Jack Jostes, and welcome to the Landscaper's Guide to Modern Sales and Marketing podcast. This show is all about helping you increase your profit and enjoy a better lifestyle at your landscaping company. And having a lifestyle is part of the reason you went into business for yourself. But too many business owners, myself included, get stuck in the weeds of running the business day to day, and it can really cost you your soul, relationships, and profit. And what I love about this interview is that Mike shares a story about a dad who is a landscaper who finally got to go to his kids' football games after he learned to automate key parts of his business. We're going to break it down and make it really easy in this interview. So check it out to learn how you can automate parts of your sales and customer service at your landscaping company.
We weren't getting the leads that I knew we could. We weren't getting the right leads.
What started happening is that our leads are more qualified.
Our sales have probably gone up by about 10 to 15% a year.
We're going to increase our sales volume by $1 million in a year.
Welcome, everyone. Today we're interviewing Mike Callahan. Mike runs Simple Growth, which is a company that helps landscapers and different companies with automation. And today we're going to talk about some of the things that you might be doing manually. You or somebody on your team is doing it each and every time, repetitive tasks, and how you can automate those things to really free up time in your life. So, Mike, thanks so much for coming today.
Jack, thanks for having me. Really excited to hop on here. Love what you're doing here with the podcast and everything else you're doing in your world. So great to sit down with like-minded individuals and talk about business. So, I'm kind of an open book. So fire away, and I'm happy to dive in and kind of lift the hood of what we've been doing in the last 25 years in my lawn and landscape business, which ended up actually getting acquired unintentionally due to the automations that we had built in the system to grow and scale.
Well, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about that. You and I met a couple weeks ago. A mutual client introduced us. Really excited to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about your background in the lawn and landscape industry, and how did you sell your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So the background was literally probably like most of us. Started pushing a lawnmower around the neighborhood when I was 15, 16 years old. Parents were big into work ethic and said, hey, you got to pay for car insurance if you want to get your license. So went around and knocked on doors. Obviously wasn't looking to make a career out of lawn care. It was just literally to get some cash to pay for the car insurance. Long story short, ended up scaling that business through 5 years of college, had 2 or 3 crews out during college. And I kind of had to take the decision, the fork in the road. Did I go to the corporate route with my buddies, or did I actually take the entrepreneur route? And at that point, obviously you kind of know where we went. We went the entrepreneur route, but I was making more money while full-time in college than I actually would have with my corporate gig. So I was like, well, this makes sense. But one of the biggest mistakes that I made in the business, and kind of why we got into automations, and why I'm really so passionate about it, is I actually built a business around me as a single point of failure. So if I wanted to leave for a day, or heaven forbid a week at a time, the business would have literally crumbled. So entrepreneurial classes in school, all the people that you've met in your local market, everybody had built this business that revolved around them as a single point of failure. So obviously that's what I did, because that's what it looked like most successful people did. So fast forward a few years after that, ended up marrying a high school sweetheart, been with her 13, 14 years. And believe it or not, on Valentine's Day, she came home back from a work trip and literally said, Mike, I'm done. Your business runs your life. And as you can imagine, I kind of hit rock bottom. So kind of searched the internet and said, hey, how do you get your life back from your business? Because I had basically a gut check moment. Either I had to fix this business that I had been living in, or I got to get rid of it. So we found, just literally by sheer luck one night on the internet, an automations platform. And I kind of bought into the idea of the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, that whole idea. So I bought the automation platform with no technology background at all one night, went to bed, woke up the next morning. I was like, you're probably not going to be running that lawn care business from the beaches of Thailand and Bali. So we dug in, we spent thousands of hours. I invested a little over $150,000 in going out and learning from the best in automation. So whether it was email marketing or text marketing, you name it, we went out throughout the US, Canada, even met with a guy from Brazil. No intentions of ever reselling it, but it was literally my journey to get my life back to my business. And I went from 100 hours a week, literally 7 days a week, to 5 to 10 hours a week, to literally an absentee owner at 30 days at a pop. And that's really what happened. And then the business literally, if people have seen me on social media, we're pretty invested in social media, giving back. I want to help people. And that's my personal mission. I help people take their life back from the business. So there was a international company that saw a bunch of these YouTube and Facebook videos, and they actually called me and said, hey, what do you want for this business? Well, it's not for sale. Actually, at first I hung up on the guy because I thought it was my buddy Garrett Matthews out of Shreveport, Louisiana. But the guy called back. I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. But eventually they kept coming back and I said, well, you guys buy service businesses. Why don't you take a look at what we do at Simple Growth, and maybe we can provide services to your other service business. We're not for sale. But once they really saw what we're probably going to be talking about here in the next 45, 50 minutes, they came back, and eventually the old saying, if the price is right, it is for sale. And the evaluation, without getting into details, was significantly higher than I would ever get in the upstate New York market. So I ended up focusing on my true passion now of helping people automate their businesses and literally take their life back from the business.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the reasons that you supposedly go into business, is so that way you don't have to work for somebody else. But then you end up working 100 hours a week for yourself, and you can get trapped in your business and you can't take time off, or it can impact your family and your relationships. So thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear that happened. And I know that it inspired you to what you're doing now, and you're really helping people. So for lawn and landscape companies that are listening, what are things that people, you see businesses that they're doing themselves, either personally or they have somebody on their staff doing repetitively, that they could automate? Let's just come up with some common things that should be automated.
Yeah, and Jack, I think maybe the easiest way of looking at it is we focused on a process called life cycle marketing. So the whole idea with automations is you don't want to kind of like eat the whole elephant. You want to take the biggest pain points and automate it first. So my automation journey, if you want, I can kind of share what I would recommend as far as best practice, because there's a lot to what you can automate. And I can give you a snapshot of what it took 7 or 8 years to automate. And we were on the bleeding edge, or at least the cutting edge of automations. Lawn care companies are just starting to automate now. This is something we did 8 or 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. But basically the idea was that we wanted to look at the customer life cycle and literally start from lead acquisition all the way through and be able to have a personalized but automated conversation. So usually the biggest thing that we see is sales. Sales is the biggest issue that we want to look at. So literally from your website, you should have a website request form that's going to segment the person based on what they're interested in, so we can have that automated but personal conversation. We should have an intake form for the office to be able to plug in certain information and track the sales source. And then in addition, I think the biggest shift right now is conversational marketing, so on-demand buying. So a bot on your website that can do automated pricing and act as customer service, because just like your Amazons, your Netflix, Uber, especially with COVID now, that acceleration of on-demand buying is there. So we're basically we're taking that lead in and we're going to segment them to what service they're interested in. And then the first thing that we do is we automatically send out a thing called a lead letter. Those are the 5 or 6 reasons why our business is different and why they should work with us and not our competitors. But the idea is we're differentiating ourselves. And very similar to one of the guests you had earlier, Jack, was Marcus Sheridan from They Ask You Answer. So Marcus was over at River Pools and Spas using a product called, I believe, HubSpot. And we were over on a product this time called Infusionsoft. But Marcus is They Ask You Answer. We were doing very similar things a different industry. We didn't know each other until we met at a few conferences we were speaking at, but it was interesting, a lot of very similarities. But we were talking about all the things that are negatively viewed as contracts. We actually just, in the lead letter, we talked about it up front. And then we created short-term education specific to the service. So if someone was a lawn mowing prospect, we would go out and talk to them and educate them how to be a lawn mowing professional. So what they should be doing as a professional, proper mowing height, how to sharpen the blades, how to balance the blades, and we talked about all the commonly asked questions. Do I need to be home to have the lawn mowed? Are you going to close the gate behind us? I'm worried about the kids and the dog running out of the backyard if I don't check it after you leave. And then the idea was, when we got really busy in the spring, especially, we would never follow up on these estimates. So we created a process that we called 20 days to close, but we would go out and literally follow up on each and every estimate automated for 20 days. And the key to success when you do this is being able to do it across omni-channel marketing, or different ways of communication. So automated email, automated text, and yes, phone calls. So we do it in like a task or a to-do assigned to someone in the office. But hey, call Mrs. Smith. It's been 3 days since we dropped off the lawnmower. Yes, this is what to say. If she says the price is too high, this is how we overcome that price objection. And the most important part in my mind was, if she becomes a client, do this in the software. If she doesn't become a client, do this. And if she says, I'm not sure, I'm price shopping you guys, do this. So what we're doing is taking the pressure of what the owner normally would have to do, or the manager would have to manage, and we're creating an automated system leveraged by the power of the software. Now, people may be listening, Jack, well, Mike, I don't have time to make phone calls. I'm only a solo entrepreneur. And that's great. I mean, I loved my time in the field, and I get that. And depending where you're going, maybe, a 30 or 40 person organization is not where you want to go. But this is to also hold the business owner accountable. Maybe you don't have time to make those phone calls. So we also recommend tying into a thing called a ringless voicemail bomb. Hits the cell phone on file without ringing, and it looks like a missed call. But it's not a robocall. It's literally like, in my instance, hey, it's Mike from Callahan's Lawn Care. So sorry I missed you. I wanted to leave you this voicemail following up regarding the estimate we dropped off 3 days ago. And the timing of it is ideal because it's automated, so it looks personal. Right. And you're kind of nervous and jerky. And you're like, if you have any questions, call us back at this number. If not, feel free to sign up online with the online estimate. So we've automated that whole entire process. And Jack, I'm sure you're well aware that 80% statistically of all the sales are followed up 5 or more times. I know for sure, as a business owner in the service industry, before I automated, you were lucky if you're getting 1 follow-up, let alone 5. Right. So a lot of people are like, I'm getting crushed by this low baller down the street. Like, he's giving around these $20 cuts. In essence, what you normally find is, it does happen, but normally what it is the guy or girl down the street literally isn't lowballing you. They're just showing up consistently 5 or more times across multiple channels, such as email, phone call, and text. And they're getting 80% of the average of the sales that you're not getting because you're just not showing up consistently.
Right. That follow-up piece is key. If I could get my clients to do 2 things, it would be 1, qualify before they go out and meet with people, and then 2, follow up, right? So many people get lost in, I sent you an estimate, so I'm done selling to you, and people forget, or they didn't get it. So I love this system, and I love the ringless voicemail bomb. For the people listening who haven't done any of this might sound kind of overwhelming. Life cycles, all these different things. How do you get started if you're currently doing all of this stuff personally? What are some of the things that you'd have somebody who's listening do to figure out how to get started with this?
Just literally grabbing the biggest pain point. So if your biggest pain point is following up an estimate, you create an automated process to follow up on the estimate. So whatever the biggest pain point is, that's where you start. And then you go to the next one. But you're just little digestible chunks. And that's the key.
And so sales, was the first thing you said that you would automate. What are some other things, because I did a workshop last week on sales process, and I brought a guest onto the virtual stage, if you will, and their sales process was great, but where they were really falling short was communicating with their clients once they were a customer. Now, this was a tree service company, and they're booked out. Here in Colorado, we had some big storms end of the year. We're still cleaning them up, and a lot of good tree care companies are booked out. So they'll book a job 2, 3, 4+ weeks out, and then their client forgets and isn't remembering when that service is happening. They're getting anxious. Are there ways that we can automate some of that appointment follow-up, confirmation? Hey, we came and did some work. Talk to me about customer service.
Absolutely. This is uncanny because we haven't even really discussed what we were talking about beforehand. So this literally lines into the next spot I was actually going. And the other thing is, before we get to that, for a quick 30 seconds, is the key when you're doing this is automations are great, but it sounds really obvious at this point, Jack, but if it looks automated, it doesn't work as well as if it looks personal. So on the estimate follow-up, and some of the reminders I'm going to show you, is we actually made it look like it came from a person. So on the bottom of our email, 2 days after every estimate, it would literally say, hey, just checking in to see if I can reserve you a spot on our schedule for this upcoming season. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a great Monday. It would merge the day of the weekend.
Ooh.
And the secret sauce in the bottom was it looked like it was sent from my iPhone. And it
I
had some
love that.
intentional autocorrect typos in there, honestly.
Nice.
It drives my current wife
Yeah.
crazy. What are you doing? I'm like,
Right.
people don't want an automated thing with your logo plastered across. But if it looks like it's from you or somebody in your office, that's going to convert. That's a relationship.
I love that. And just today, I'm pulling it up right now. I saw somebody that I work with, one of my business coaches, Wayne Herring, posted on LinkedIn a photo of a handwritten note with a drawing that was sent to him. And there's a company called punkpost.co that will send a handwritten note with a drawing in the mail, and you can automate that, right? You could automate the address of where it's sent. So there's ways, and I want to talk to you about direct mail later, because we were kind of geeking out on that on our personal call. So back to the customer service thing. So you're making it a pure personal.
Yep.
Sometimes even sent from my iPad or from my iPhone or whatever. What else?
Well, that lead letter we're talking about, they're actually, just like we did the ringless voicemail bomb, there's a company called Send Jim that we actually tie our automations into. We actually have basically what appears to be a hand addressed envelope for the lead letter. So if you're doing a big construction job or tree job or design build, timing there usually is a little bit longer, so you're not closing them over the phone live. So that's part of the things we'd actually automate. So it looks like there's a hand addressed envelope with the lead letter in it. So it's that personal connection.
So it's an actual print letter that's mailed to them.
Yep. So I didn't want to totally geek out to, but yeah, we do direct mailing that's automated and it looks personal. It's the same idea as that product you're talking about. But once they become a client, now communication needs to really ramp up. So what we've done automated, and all this happens without ever having to do anything, is we send out a welcome email. So it acclimates them what to expect when they're working with you, and kind of sets the tone. And if you need a credit card on file, we also would recommend putting in a PCI compliant credit card form to get that card on file. So we're automating all these repetitive things that if you need a card on file before service, it's automated. And then we go out and do a 30, 60, and 90-day follow-up. So if you're doing this yourself, really what you need to do is build some logic in the automation to make it personal. So if the first service they sign up for is a reoccurring service, we follow up 30, 60, 90, because that's the biggest churn or cancellation time. But if they sign up for spring cleanup, and that's the first thing they sign up for, you don't want to follow up 30, 60, and 90 days. You're going to look like an idiot. It's a one-time service. You follow up once. Then we go out and kind of nurture them through happy holidays, all the major holidays. We talk about the holidays, we wish them happy holiday. But then, and we'd also recommend going out and doing monthly newsletters to educate them what they should be doing in their yard or home the month in advance. So maybe in the winter season, we're going into ornamental pruning. If we're talking about tree companies, what's the proper time of the cuts, how to cut. And then a real soft one-liner at the bottom, like, hey, by the way, if you need some help, we're here to help. So it's education with a soft upsell. Now, once the service is actually dispatched, that is what we call be there and been there. It's a bit of a tongue twister, Jack, but basically what it is, it's automated text or email that goes out and reminds them when their job has been dispatched and when the crew's going to be there. And then at the end, based on, depending on the software it's set up on or what you're using, if they're using a mobile device clocking out, the automation can also text or email the client, letting them know that the crew has left. So one of the companies we've worked with for automations actually cleans my house. So to see it on the consumer end is really cool. So when Angelique actually comes to clean the house, I know she's scheduled on this Wednesday. When she leaves the house, I'll actually get a text message saying, hey, she's done, that door's locked. And some of the automation platforms will actually let the technician through their mobile app take a picture of the locked door, and you actually get that in the automated communication. So if a fence gate was a big thing for a client, you could have a picture of the locked fence gate every time your crew leaves.
Yeah, I love that. We're talking about commercial landscape maintenance with a group last week, and they were saying that they're going and visiting clients and they're doing work, but their clients don't really know how often they're coming. They don't know what they're doing, and then that kind of creates some doubt of, well, what am I paying for? What are you doing? And I love this idea of automating some of these account management updates can really help with client retention. So, this all sounds great. Talk to us about some of the softwares that you're seeing, that you work with, that you recommend. How are you doing all of this?
Yeah, so the main platform we started out was originally Infusionsoft. So basically, it's a CRM, a customer relationship management software. It does strictly automations, and their idea is they're the hub of automations, and you can go through Zapier, different APIs that allow two different softwares to talk, and you kind of have like the main hub, and there's different spokes on it. Eventually, we were using a product called Service Autopilot to do our scheduling, billing, job costing, everything in there, and then we sync that with QuickBooks. But when Service Autopilot built their automations internally, it made sense for us to bring it all under one roof. And the reason why we did that is it avoided multiple system chaos. So no matter how good the sync is or the API is, if you've got 5 or 6 different softwares talking to each other, the data is going to get funky in certain points. And we didn't want to have miscommunication. Now, Infusionsoft is great, HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, there's a whole bunch of them. But what we found with the benefit of Service Autopilot is it was all under one roof, and it could trigger off native statuses like the job has been dispatched, the job has been completed. So we're certified partners with Infusionsoft. We're certified advisors with Service Autopilot. Now, those are the two main ones, but Infusionsoft has Zapier integration. So that could go into any service platform that you guys are using, or girls are using in the lawn care or design build world. If it has an open API or Zapier connection, you can build these yourselves based on countless different automation platforms. But those are the two big ones that we actively work with.
Have you worked much with like Jobber or LMN or Service Titan? Talk to me about some of those and pros, cons of
all great platforms. And I think that the biggest thing that's platform independent that I would recommend, without mentioning names of software, is like the first software I had was great. It was instrumental. But as you kind of get to that 750 million marker, depending where you want to go, you're going to start hitting some glass ceilings of the actual platform. It's just not scalable. So when I talk to people, if they're looking at Jobber, Service Titan, Service Monster, Service Autopilot, the list, Boss LMN, the list goes on and on and on. Real Green. Where are you at now? Where do you want to go? And does that software have the capability to scale with you? Is it more of an enterprise software like Aspire? But I think that's the conversation you got to have with you and your team, if you have one, of where are we at? Where do we need to go? Because the biggest pain point I see when I bring people into some of these softwares and reset up the software for them is that, once you get to a certain size, shifting a software program is not a walk in the park. I mean, it can be done, and it can be. And if you don't want to do it yourself, there's people out there to do it for you. But it's not a small undertaking. And there's a lot of data entry.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. We're actually switching from HubSpot marketing to ActiveCampaign here at Ramblin' Jackson, but I am keeping HubSpot Sales CRM because I really like that. And yeah, it's a lot of work. It's not something that you want to have to do.
Yep.
Ever.
So where I'm going is
switch.
Before you make that jump, make sure where you're jumping is scalable to where you want to go, because you don't want to do it again. But
Absolutely.
Yes, we have definitely worked with Jobber, Service Titan, Service Monster. I mean, pretty LMN a little bit, but I mean, most of the major platforms we have worked with, and they're all great. They all have their pros and cons, but it's really what you want to go, and is it industry or vertical specific? Like, are you more heavy design build? Are you more heavy maintenance? Are you, more enterprise, like going into maybe an Aspire? But those are all the things you got to have, kind of in the back of your mind, that where you're going.
Tell me a story about, a client that comes to mind who was maybe like where you were at 15 years ago, or whenever you kind of burned out and you realized you were working 100 hours a week. You were telling me about somebody who went to their kid's sports game or something for the first time.
Absolutely. So, I mean, yes, services we provide, we do make money, obviously, but honestly, I think the thing that really drives me is my mission right now to help business owners get their life back from the business, or avoid the pitfalls that I had in my personal life. And I guess one of the things, Jack, that we were talking about pre-interview here was that we had a gentleman call me and he said, "Hey, Mike, I really want to thank you. I went and saw my kid's football game last night." I was like, "Oh, like, Joe, that's great. Like, that's," and I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of odd. I'm like, "Well, can you tell me a little bit more?" And the guy seemed like pretty emotional. He goes, "No, Mike, you don't understand. I've never seen my kid's football game." And I believe it was his senior year of high school. And he goes, "What the automations that you guys built for me did is it gave me the ability to actually see my kid's game and not have to be on my cell phone. We're not running around putting out fires." And he goes, I actually could get out of work and get it done because it started to buy the time back. And that to me is the biggest thing. And I'm definitely an open book, and I am not on a pedestal preaching, because trust me, I've made most of the mistakes and had to figure it out, or just got lucky enough to get it right. So my biggest thing is going out, just like hiring somebody like Jack here is, I'm going out and finding the people who've done this before me, and I'm not reinvent that wheel. I'm just going to put so when I built Simple Growth, I hired a personal coach that had basically worked in Infusionsoft Active Campaign, and now he's in another company. He was one of the top software as a service partner channel guys. And Corey has been instrumental in letting me know, once you've scaled a business to $1 million, Jack, and I'm sure you've seen this, they say it's easier to scale $1 million to $1 million and beyond, and well beyond. And I will say it is, but each little nuance, like when you see it, you've been there, like, okay, now I know what this looks like. And is it a people person? Is it a system process? Is it a culture problem? And you start to see that. So scaling Simple Growth, we scaled exceptionally fast in the last 2 or 3 years. But people problems are people problems. But I still had broken that $1 million mark well beyond. But I knew from the first time around, I needed to find somebody that had done it in this industry. And just the little instrumental tweaks that coach can give you is just, it's enlightening. And this gentleman with this football game, I was like, hey man, I have been there. I've lived this. I'm in those trenches. The wounds are still fresh. These are the things you need to do if this is your biggest pain point in your business. And there's 3 areas of the business. So it's sales, employee systems, and things I like to call repetitive tasks. And those are going to be your 3 main hurdles that can be automated to break that $1 million mark and beyond. And if you're beyond $1 million and you haven't automated them, well, that's where it really pulls some time back and really helps you.
Yeah, I love that story of the guy going to his kid's football game for the first time. And it reminds me, on this podcast, we actually interviewed one of my clients, Jake Harris, who was paying for all kinds of Home Advisor, Google ads, Facebook ads, all kinds of paid advertising, but his marketing wasn't really solid. And we worked with him on that, and he dialed in his sales process, and he literally shaved off 40 hours a week from his work week because of the investment in technology and sales process and people. And now he coaches his kids' football teams. And it's so amazing that technology and the right systems can have that impact and give you that freedom back and make running your business enjoyable. It can also, in your case, make your business sellable, right? Which business would you rather buy? Landscaper Larry, who 90% of his business comes from word of mouth to Larry, and Larry does everything, or landscaper Sherry, and Sherry has, automated systems, diverse marketing channels coming in, right? Talk to us a little bit about how your automation can actually help build a sellable business asset.
Yeah. So obviously the bigger valuation is going to be on reoccurring revenue, not just one-time revenue. So the last part of the sales automation that you kind of led into perfectly is, now that we've got them in, we've welcomed and wowed them, basically, we want to upsell. So what we're going to do is potentially sell our gateway services. So something we could sell quickly over the phone on like Google Earth, and measuring that out is your lawn mowing, your fertilizing. But this can be for design build, any lawn care landscape company. But the idea is that once we have that initial service, it makes sense to go out and upsell. So maybe if you're doing fertilization, you want to do perimeter pests, mosquito control, deer control, whatever that is. But how many services can we do while we're already there? So we're going to go out and upsell those services. So the automation is going to segment you as if you have, if you don't have, say, maybe you're a lawn mowing customer, but you don't have fertilization weed control. So you don't have an estimate in play right now. You don't have one like on a waiting list to go out. And you haven't, like, you just signed up, but it's not scheduled. So there's logic you would build into it, but now I can have a personal conversation. So you're not like the guy who started the automation goes, he email blasts everybody on his list and says, hey, if you haven't signed up for fertilization, we're running a special. And oh, by the way, if you've signed up already, just ignore this. So what have you done? You told your customer that you don't care about them. You have no idea where they're at in your your playbook, and you potentially are giving new people a discount and not them. So I'm on a couple of these email lists. I get them every month, and I just cringe when I see them. But I need to see it just to remind myself that is not the right thing to do. Trust me, in the early days, we did this. So
For sure.
That's where the play is. But now what we're seeing is, so we'll email, text message, and do some ringless voicemail bombs around each upsell, and it's seasonal. So as we're going into the spring season, about a month to a month and a half before that season ramps up, that pain point, the conversation is the early adopters overlaps to the pain point of like the weeds popping up. But what we're seeing results on these upsells are literally 60 to 80 estimate requests in 4 to 5 hours. I mean, it's
Wow.
insane. We just had a guy this fall that did $82,000 of aeration and overseeding, or aeration and overseeding to people he hadn't done it to in the past. So what he's doing in that example is he's double or tripling the client lifetime value or revenue. And that's where that evaluation can really go up. So I don't know if that really answers the question completely, but that is like, we're going out and just continuing to upsell those services, and that makes it scalable.
Sure.
And
Right.
it doesn't revolve around the business owner. So the day I signed for that business, I never went back.
I love that. I love that. So one of the things that we talked about before we did this interview was one of our mutual favorite authors is Dan Kennedy.
Yes.
And Dan Kennedy, what you're describing, I think he calls it the marketing triangle, which is sending the right message to the right market with the right media. And the media piece could be direct mail, it could be a phone call, it could be a voicemail, text, email, whatever. But what's I think even more important in that is the right message to the right market. And so the right market being, I don't just have one list of customers. I have my customer list segmented into clients who have done a patio, clients who have done lawn care, clients who have done this, and then I exclude them when I send out my email marketing. So that way, I'm not blowing the deal, sending the wrong message to the wrong market. And I really believe that that's the key here, and that's where we started the interview, is with the whole life cycle of where are they in their journey with you, which specific services have they bought, and once you have that, you can build these amazing automated email sequences, or spring is right around the corner depending on when we launch this. So, Mike, spring cleanups, hey, Mike, you're not on our calendar for spring cleanups, click here to get on the calendar. So I love it.
Yeah, it's instrumental. And like when it gets busy in the spring, you don't have time, you don't remember, but now it just, March 1st or whenever that is supposed to hit, it just hits and goes. And it's just consistent. It's not relying what's in your head and you reminding your office staff, okay, next week we got to do our spring cleanup upsell. It just happens, and it's consistent, and it allows you to have that personal but automated conversation. And I think that's the key. And you don't sound like a sleazy salesperson, and we're using different copy. So like that Dan Kennedy, that long copy text, the sales text. So that may be one of them, but then I'm going to do another one where it's like short and to the point. And then another one, I may link to a video. So how does your consumer consume information in that? So like, you don't want to just be stuck to one way, but you want to be able to have a variety of things. And most people, let's be honest, don't want to talk to us on the phone, but SMS or text messaging, that's huge. Depending on the rules of Facebook, right now there's a 24-hour window with Messenger. So you can't basically do commercial sales through Messenger. After that 24-hour window period, it was about this time last year when they did that, which I think is actually a good move. Most marketers hated it, but you don't want to become a slimy salesperson. You actually want to provide value and let them come out. So like I said, different channels though, but like when people are coming through a bot or Facebook Messenger, if that's their preferred communication channel, have it in the first 24 hours. And if they want to buy over it, that's great. Like I'll sell stuff right over the bot.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Mike, hey, it's been a real pleasure. We've learned a ton from you today. Tell us again, what is Simple Growth? Where can we learn more and get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Easiest way of reaching out is the website. It's simplegrowthsystems with an S.com. It goes over everything we do. There's a ton of free resources. I've probably got 500 or 600 videos, and just literally, if you're going to build this stuff yourself, check it out. Like we literally lift the hood and just like, I'm in the mindset of abundance, probably like yourself, Jack. I'm going to tell you how to do it. If you need some help, we're here, but it's not for everybody. Some people want to do it themselves. So we just go out and do it, but it's simplegrowthsystems with an S.com. And if you want to test and give a dry run of the bots and conversational marketing on the bottom right-hand side, you can actually go in and throw your address in and get a live fictitious price and kind of see what on-demand buying looks like. And it's not just for maintenance service, it's hardscapes and all different services in there. But people are adapting to this, and the early adapters are winning the game right now.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said earlier, even you, pretty savvy guy who has figured all of this out, you hired a coach and you worked with somebody to get results faster. And I think that's really the value that you're talking about. And a lot of these things have been done before, right? There are a lot of lawn and landscape companies have the similar repetitive tasks. And I know you guys have a lot of those templates and systems already built out. So everyone check out Mike's website, simplegrowthsystems.com. And Mike, it's been a real pleasure having you here, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you having me. Look forward to it.